you helped give me, a little of the courage to just, okay, we got to make the decision. And then once we started making decisions, we just started making more and more. And then things just started to flow and the sky didn't fall. And oh, guess what? We got more profitable. Oh, clients started responding that they love what we're doing.
All right. I am so excited for today. I have two of my favorite West Coasters on me. I am Eastern. I'm in EST right now. I got two people. Stephen, you're in CST right now.
I am in Central Time. Correct. Yes.
And then we have the one and the only, Jeff Brown, the head honcho of Libke Insurance.
He lives in what
So you
should
are
be
the chief.
officially the state of Eastern Washington. I live in what should be officially the state of Western Washington. However, we've come together to form one state just called Washington.
Yeah, because we need your tax revenue.
Okay. I didn't know that there was an Eastern and a Western Washington, like at one point in time that,
Well,
this is good. This is good information.
There haven't been. It's just been suggested many times.
Yes. Eastern Washington, Eastern
Oh.
Oregon, they all want out of the west side of the mountain politics, but we don't have the revenue to do it on our own, so we're stuck.
You guys have the wine, though.
Yeah.
And
So-
apples.
We have apples and wine, so
Ooh, but
We'd
is
be
there apple wine?
Yeah.
So many questions.
Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about who Libke Insurance is? And we already have sort of preluded to the fact that I'll kick it off with you are in the apple capital of the world, is it?
correct. Wenatchee, apple capital of the world here in North Central Washington. Libke Insurance has been in Wenatchee since 1917, a little before I got here, but
You don't look a day over 20.
it's the apples and the wine that does good for us. My grandfather joined the firm in 1955, my uncle in 1980. I got an offer to come join the agency at the end of 1996, start of 97. My uncle had split the agency in half, and we were a 7-person agency with a little under $500,000 in revenue in one location.
I'm
here in
doing the
Wenatchee.
math in my head on that, by the way.
It's not good, Kelly, but it was 1997 and we didn't know any better. So uncle hired me to come in and run his benefits department. So that's all I was licensed for at that point. A year later, I got my PNC license and then I passed back then the broker's exam. So I was a licensed broker agent. And then after 10 years of working with my uncle, he passed away suddenly. And I decided that after working with Rob for 10 years, I was unemployable. So I better buy the agency from his estate. Did that. And since then, we've started growing. At one point, we grew to, I think we had about 54 people in 9 locations with offices in New York, New Jersey, across Washington. And then realized that we had way too many people for the revenue and the combination. Started right-sizing the agency a bit. And then I made the decision that I didn't really want to be in a partnership across the country. So I took my toys, came back to my little sandbox here in Wenatchee and said, I'll focus on stuff west of Mississippi. Long story short, we're now a 15-person agency with 2 locations and more profitable than ever and working on a very good growth plan. Thanks a lot, in part to yourself and Stephen.
Well, thank you. So you guys do personal lines, commercial lines, benefits. I have been to Wilbur, Washington. Not many people can say that.
I have never been to Wilbur, Washington that I know of.
Put it on your bucket list, Stephen.
Yeah, get that going. I do believe, though, before you were in insurance, weren't you in construction? Weren't you total blue collar?
First day of summer, once I turned 16, my dad put me on a commercial construction job site, let me know I'd had 15 good summers. That came to an end. And it was to be on this side at 7 a.m. on the Monday morning. And pretty much worked construction whenever I wasn't in school, throughout the rest of high school, through college, graduated, still needed money. So I was right back onto a job. So the day after graduation. And then I traveled a little bit, took a little time. I had saved up some money. And when I got back from about 5 months of backpacking, obviously visa needed to be paid back. So I was back on a job site. And then finally I decided that, maybe I wanted a job I showered before work versus after. And it was like, well, what do I do? What can I do? And I just started looking at things. And my grandmother was pushing me to get into insurance and come join the agency in Wenatchee. And of course, being single, living in Seattle, that was the last thing on my mind, was coming to this little town of Wenatchee. My only only thing I really knew of Wenatchee was just visiting my grandparents here. Didn't really know all it had to offer. So I pretty much put a kibosh on her, and I got into supplemental benefit sales for Aflac. This is pre-doc, mind you. So no one knew who we were. I spent 11 months learning all about rejection, cold calling, how to be thrown out of different office parks, all the good things you need to know to start your insurance career. And then at the end of 1996, my uncle offered me, said he was splitting off the agency and offered me to come work with him. And I made the decision to kind of jump at that. I needed a life change at that point. So packed up all my worldly belongings, in a Jeep Wrangler with the top and doors off and came to Wenatchee.
So what you might not know, Jeff, is on this podcast, Stephen Harrington was on the cover, or not in Teen magazine, as the look of Seattle.
Well,
So
I've
we
heard this.
actually have live footage. Yeah. So who knows? You two may have passed the cross.
We may have
Well,
crossed.
I was never the look of Seattle, so I can guarantee you.
I wasn't costume for it. I wasn't a model.
Jeff, if you had
for
some
it.
cargo pants and a flannel, you might have been the look of Seattle at that point in time.
Some Doc Martens,
So, you know,
maybe, you never know.
Never
I
had
think there's something interesting too about like, hey, I think a lot of agencies get into this like growth mindset, right? More people, just bigger,
Yeah.
right?
And that was
And
the
then
route.
sometimes you wake up.
Yeah, we went that route of
Go ahead.
got to make acquisitions, we're hiring people. Oh, more locations. Let's open another location. And I think we got the point where, okay, well, we don't need a receptionist for 7 different locations. We started having too many unlicensed people that couldn't actually do what needed to be done. And then the licensed people we had weren't doing what all needed to be done. So thankfully, thanks to technology and a bunch of other things, we've been able to kind of skinny that down and right size ourselves and bring everything together so that we're not paying, 7 people to do one job anymore.
I think that's so huge because I see a lot of agencies who, and like I'll get the phone call from people like, there's an agency that wants to sell to me. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, I think I should do it. I'm going to pay like 11 times EBITDA, but it's going to be so great. And I'm like, okay, so what's the deal? Well, it's like $120,000 in revenue. Like, so you're going to give this guy like a lot of money. It's all paper files. It's all through a cluster. They have a direct appointment with Progressive though, which is great.
Because you can't get
They want to
those.
sell. That comes my way because they want to sell. And people get so in love with the idea of acquisition that they don't always think like rationally about the scenario.
Nope, for sure. Yeah, you fall in love with the idea of acquiring. When doing acquisitions, I always tried to be of the mindset that 1 + 1 had to equal 3 or more. That was something someone told me at one point, and I have tried to follow that. I'm not going to say it's always been dead on successful, but we usually have done pretty good on it. Through a handful of acquisitions, we became the largest agent for Grange Insurance, but they had the entire company. And I think after one acquisition, because of the way we did the deal, the profit sharing check that year, which we had a very good year in, actually paid for most of the down payment on the purchase of the entire agency. So
That's awesome.
from the one carrier. So it was, it's nice when you get those wins. They're not always there, but when you can find those right acquisitions, they're great. But there are acquisitions, I think, where you can add revenue, you can add people, but you're not adding value. And at the end of the day, you end up going backwards because of it.
Well, I think like there's acquisitions, right? There's the dollar and cents, right? Like that's what you talked about, and that's the win. But I think where agencies are not always as prepared for is what I call like the Brady Bunch moment, right?
Yeah.
Like you're rocking this. I know Stephen knows this because working for Cross, like you guys did a ton of acquisitions, but it's like, Libke Insurance, right? So that world and you think, well, it's insurance. Everybody must run kind of the same way. Until you get there and you're like, what? Like, what are you doing? Why would you do that?
Yeah. Culture becomes a huge thing when doing these. And if you're going to bring people into your organization, can they be part of your culture? I mean, will they fit in? Will they abide by the processes, the workflows you put in?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I bought an agency or 2 or a book that was paper files. The amount of time and energy it takes to kind of convert all that, get it scanned into your management system, because we have a way of doing things and we're not going to compromise our data or our integrity on that. because someone else wants to stay stuck in 1975. I've actually
here's
turned
the-
down a couple acquisitions since then of no management system, no employment agreements. Is where you start seeing the red flags for popping up more than anything else. And it's just like, no, not doing it.
Or if you do it, it has to be economical, right? Like it
Yeah.
has to be, it's like when you buy the house, it's a fixer upper, you're paying X and you know why. And that's the end of the day, but don't go into it romanticizing that this is going to solve all your problems. In fact, for a year, it's going to cause a lot more work.
Yeah.
You'll laugh that the agency I was at today, they bought a lot of agencies and, now there's this hard market, which y'all might have gotten a newsflash.
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
So
Heard
they're
something
like,
about that.
they're like, well, for 30 years over at XYZ agency, my rate never went up 22%. It must be you people.
You people.
Great time to be able to introduce yourself to a whole new book, a client book.
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, you're valid for agency standards. I need you to sign this form that was never in your file. I'm like, hello, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
You have no water sewer backup. I'm going to add that on. I didn't need it before. Yeah. But I think if we talk for a second, like the 5 red flags I see when you buy an agency, when you're starting to Brady Bunch it, move in together. It's like, well, my client don't, right?
Yeah.
My client don't want to get on EFT.
We fought that with a lot of a lot now former staff, but as we run offices together and brought people in, and then just over time, you kind of hear people saying, oh, well, we said no more cash. I don't know if that's going to work. People like to make their payments. Well, guess what? The
whole agency will
adjust it,
crash.
right?
We'll call it class.
Yeah, they adjust.
Yeah.
People won't use the internet. So they're not, well, how do they communicate? Well, they're on Facebook. Wasn't that the internet? For all the pushback we got, and it took a little time of kind of digging, and then sometimes just having to say, no, we're not doing this. Like, it'll be okay. Was getting past our own staff's bias of how our customers wanted to interact with us when they didn't really know because they weren't asking. They were putting their own bias on things and saying, oh, they won't do EFT. They can't pay in full. Well, no one knows who can pay what and when.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. Some of the folks you would think had nothing or some of the wealthiest people in town.
That's why.
Because they haven't bought a new truck in 30 years doesn't mean they don't have $3 million sitting in the bank and pay everything in full when they can. So
I always think it's like my clients, it's like, well, actually, I purchased them. They're mine. And then they have the bias on their clients. And then a lot of agencies you may pick up, the team may be more the veteran, the seasoned staff. And I would always encourage people, and just curious your thoughts, like you have to kind of test their technology skills because especially if they're coming from paper files, now they have to learn all these companies, processes and procedures, tell their clients,
learn
by the way, there's this management system. And I always just tell people, it's like, it sounds great, but most of the people, unfortunately, will not survive the acquisition. It's like, I don't know if even from your experience, like, I feel like it's 25% of staff survive an acquisition.
Yeah. And I think the only successful one we had was we already had the standards of the agency and the culture, and we'd already rebuilt a lot. And when we were purchasing the agency, we went in and had constant communication about, here's the way we do things. It's a family. It's a this. And kind of built that in. And that stuff was a lot more successful. But I still think it was like 50% turnover.
Well, Stephen, I think you'll agree. If you don't have your house in order and you're doing an acquisition, it's just all that's going to do is make the waters that much more muddy.
We get to pick which one of the 3 different ways to do things might be the least effective. And that's the way everybody's going to go.
Yeah. Because every person is going to pick what's easiest for them.
It's also like everybody learning new boundaries, right? So they have a new boss. So if they're allowed to get away with it, guess what happens? It's like, okay, well, we're gonna keep doing this. I think that's where it gets really hard, especially when there's multiple locations, because as an owner, you can't be in those locations all the time.
No, and that's the hardest part is when you are hours away from other locations. How do you keep tabs on things? And it comes down to how you have to have people you can trust and have a way to go and do some follow-up and checking, make sure that policies and procedures are being followed.
Trust but verify. And I will say this, cameras in offices are very, very, very positive, albeit every agency has talked about it. It takes about a year for everybody to digest the process. And then all of a sudden something happens and they're like, we're getting cameras. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
we've put them in both our locations, honestly, for security as much as anything. And I think our staff doesn't even remember they're there at this point.
Yeah.
No.
Mm-mm.
We don't use
Well,
them
and that goes into the trust
as a
thing.
punishment tool or anything else. It's just sometimes it's nice to know someone's there.
If a customer's at their desk and you're like, where there's an infraction or something happens, somebody flips and trips, or hey, if you are taking cash, that's a lot of cash. Some days that without eyes on it, that's your cash,
Exactly.
I want to talk for a second because I think one thing you did really successfully, actually, and difficult, but was, hey, looking at the profile of the agency and saying, well, we have these offices that have like one person in it, one part-time person in it, and there's in these small towns in Washington, and it's a big decision. How can you kind of consolidate and close some of those offices? Because not so much because maybe you don't want to be in that area, but the staffing of those you have to have too much staff, or just managing the staff is really, really difficult.
Well, our story, and we've had a lot of locations over different times. Had to come to the conclusion that we didn't need an office every 30 miles. You just don't in this day and age. And then you kind of look geographically, we shut down some offices in places that we still want to serve those communities, but we just couldn't find staff to be able to run an office appropriately. Like you said, you can't have a location with one person kind of part-time. That's not good for our customers. We were probably running away more customers because they weren't sure when we'd be open, or, what if someone went to lunch, the office would be closed, or they're taking a vacation. Now it's just closed for a week. They were too far away to run over there and put a sign up or do anything else. So, and those are things I struggle with, some of those decisions. And I'd like to thank you, Kelly, for helping walk me through some of the pain points on, just sometimes you gotta try it and do it. And honestly, as we went through, it's been the best thing we did. We were able to retain the good clients, the ones we wanted to out of these areas. We're still able to write new business, and we're, stuff that actually our carriers want and meets the fire scoring and everything else that we deal with here in Washington now. But, and we're able to support the communities. We just don't have the overhead that's there. We don't have the random hours and such. They actually know that, hey, between 9 and 5, they get to talk to somebody.
Yeah. And I think if you want to talk a little bit too, because one thing I noticed as that decision is getting made, and you did it very gracefully and very well, people had the opportunity to come to headquarters, but if that wasn't a good fit for them, then that was okay.
It wasn't our intention to just like, okay, we're closing this office, you're done. It was, well, here's where our opportunities are. And so first, we made those offers to everybody who was already with us. If you want to work out of this office or find a way to keep them working, we just weren't taking up on those offers. We're already recruiting at that point, and we're able to onboard a bunch of newer staff here in Wenatchee that took us from kind of this empty feeling office where, we were also spread out. All of a sudden we, as the point where I was like, I don't have an open desk anymore. We're full.
Well, and I saw the culture bloom at that point in time, right? Like,
well, getting people all together
from other files. Yeah, it was just like everybody worked like a team far more.
Yeah, we definitely have that today here in our Wenatchee office. It's our people do work as a team, and some have risen to leadership roles already just in the matter of 6-month period. We've seen where they've just grown in their role, stepped up, and are actually mentoring coworkers without really being asked to. And so now we decided we'd formally ask them to, and they're even doing more of it. So it's fun to watch. And it takes me back a little bit though. When I look and I say, when I started here, I was the youngest person in the agency. And I walk out there now, I'm like, God, I'm the oldest. I'm not sure what happened.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Not sure what happened in the last 3 to 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Well, and there's 2 more things I just want to talk about before we honor your time. But one of them is something I'm a believer in. I think it's very, 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 very difficult to have part-time licensed agents that are doing like account manager work, producer work. And my feeling on it is like, I'm off Tuesday. So Monday I'm running around like crazy, driving everybody nuts. Then Tuesday I'm off with the work half done, or I'm working late till Monday, right? Or people call in on that Tuesday and they expect to talk to them because it's a work day. And then everybody's just trying to help or scrambling and come back in on Wednesday. So I'm not a believer that in a licensed agent, account manager, or sales role, working part-time, unless it's maybe like 8 to 2:30 or 3, but every day, I think that it causes a lot more challenges. Like it sounds really good, but I think it's so hard in practicality. Now, if it's processing or back end, I feel totally differently, but I know you dealt with some of those things. What would your advice be to other agents?
Like you said, it all sounds great when you're starting. As we kind of get into trying to grow and putting in procedures and workflows and trying to work as a team, and our commercial folks to work as a team and our farm people to work as a team, it's hard when you have team members kind of popping in and out and, they're here on Monday, not here on Tuesday, here on Wednesday, they're on Thursday, gone on Fridays. Yeah, I would agree. Like to do it again, I would not bring someone on in a license role part-time if they're going to have a book of business they're responsible for, be client facing, because it's hard for clients. They have to remember, when are they here? I could see doing, as you said, if they're, every day, we could do some shifting of hours when we're actually, that's part of some of the stuff we're working on now with some of our team is some hybrid, whether they're going to be in office some days, remote some days, allowing, certain folks to have a little bit different work hours just to accommodate their personal lives as well, because there's more to life than just work. And I think for the good people, we want to make those accommodations. It's just really hard when someone is like truly part-time and think that they're doing this great job. But the problem is they're there on one day, not there the next. And that's where it comes down to those procedures.
When they miss a team meeting, they miss
And if things are not in your management systems, we kind of saying, and you reinforced this one of the first times we met, if it's not in the management system, it didn't happen. And so what we found is it's really hard when you have someone who's there one day, not the next, back another day. The flow it doesn't work. So if we're going to do people part-time, they have to be consistent schedules.
And I'll echo, even if I would say to agency owners listening, even if you have a great employee that's coming to say I needed to work part-time, I would ask you to look at a different role. Maybe they're back-end support. Maybe they quote. They just can't do things that have a lot of handouts to them, because I think it just causes way more issues. Way more issues.
It's hard on clients.
The last thing I'll say is
it's definitely hard on clients.
It's hard on clients, and it's hard on the rest of the team, right? Like
they're trying to plan their day, but then they realize, my coworker's out today, so now I've got to do 125% of my work.
And the last question I have for you there, you remember when we first started talking, and we were deciding to do this, 2-year program together, and it was like one of the big obstacles we faced, and you had it too, and it's very common, but like it's so hard to find good people. What are we going to do if these people don't get on board, right? That's the big question everybody has. Like, what do I do if my staff doesn't get on board? And, I like to use Jason Katz's phrase, if you can't change your people, change your people. And everyone's like, it's impossible to find good people out there.
It feels
right?
that way.
That's the initial response. And I think some of it is it does feel that way. And by the way, it's not easy. I'm not making light of it. It is very difficult. But then I feel like when you start getting your house in order, to your point, like the energy is different and what you're offering is different, and you're not hiring at a desperation. You're hiring like with a clear job description and an onboarding and like the things that are attractive. And I always say this to people, and they never believe me, but I said, when you're ready, then we're going to put it out in the universe. We're going to put it on Indeed, LinkedIn. We're going to go full. We're going to talk to as many people as we can. Every waitress you see, you're going to talk to. You're just going to talk to as many people as you can that you're hiring. And then slowly but surely, like methodically, it just starts falling into place. And I can't like predict it and I can't guarantee it, but I feel like that's really what happened for you.
Well, I will tell you, we put stuff out on ZipRecruiter, on Indeed, in local ads, probably had like 6 months of just nothing or nothing worth talking about.
Horrible.
Yeah, like there isn't a licensed person to be found. There isn't even anyone who could get licensed. People say, we need to be licensed. They still have a driver's license. Okay, that's not what we're looking for. And then, we kind of, but we just jumped in, and started making the changes that we needed to make. We putting the agency into the direction we wanted it to go, holding staff accountable. And I like to say, we look at that and it's like, okay, with our team, do we are they the right person in the right seat? Sometimes they might be the right person, just wrong seat. Do we have a different seat for them? Sometimes they just don't fit anywhere anymore, or they don't want to be on the bus anymore. They're going to take themselves off.
Mm-hmm.
But as we kind of went through that process and became okay with saying, we appreciate what you've done, but if you're not comfortable moving forward, then we'll go ahead and leave, and we'll deal with it. And so we kind of got to the point where we were running a little lean in some departments for a little bit, but we held out looking for people that were the right people, the right fit. I resisted the urge to hire anyone that could fog a mirror at one point. In a matter of, I think, like 2 weeks, was able to find 2 or 3 really good people, and just out of nowhere. It was like, I had this great interview. I was all jazzed up about that. And the next day at lunch, I get this request, and I'm thinking, oh, they're not licensed in Washington. Oh, but they're licensed in Idaho. I can make this transition work. And now she's a team lead. So it was like, I'm responding to this, and actually had them do an Omnia profile before I even had the first interview, because I was determined that if they fit with what I was looking for, then I'm not even going to waste this whole thing, let them talk to somebody else. We will make an offer after the first interview, and we'll go from there. So.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool because it's like I just explain to people that you just kind of trust the process. Like, you get your house in order, and then you do. And it's like, I feel like the same thing at dating, right? Like, if you work on yourself and then you get back, it's like the right person shows up. But if everything is disheveled, it just doesn't work. And then I think people get deflated and frustrated. And you guys created entry level roles so people could learn insurance, which I think is huge too. Like, you have some really bright people on that front.
Yeah, we took your advice, and some of them were like, well, okay, well, we find people the right attitude and aptitude, and we can start training them and build them into roles. And we were fortunate to be able to find a few other people that already had licenses and skill sets that we could just transfer into the Washington marketplace. Those are the ones that's like, once we became clear about what it was we were looking for and what we're trying to do and where we're trying to go and how we were going to do it, it made the hiring process easier. Because when you don't really have an idea, you may know where you want to be, but you don't know how you're going to get there. It's hard to help fill those seats on the bus when you're not sure which route the bus is going. As we became clear on who we wanted to be, it became much easier to hire people. And all of a sudden, I was sorting through, like 12, was it 120 resumes at one point. I couldn't keep up with who was applying for what anymore. And we had to just kill all the ads off.
Well, and I also think too, it's like when you work in a culture, people come in and they're warm and they're welcomed. And it's like, let me train you on it. You come into our own culture and it's like, what do you want? Are you going to make it? They can't do anything. They can't help me. And, now that there's like a welcome at the agency, not like a don't bother me.
Yeah. Well, and I think it helps too. We're still working on it because it's a never ending process, but a whole onboarding process of not expecting, here's your desk, here's your phone, go. It's okay. You're going to spend a few weeks learning our systems, learning carriers, learning processes and procedures. You're going to actually spend some time in our dummy data and practice doing the things. And then we're going to check that. And then we're going to do it again. And then you're going to
learn the Libke way.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how you did it before. We use a radar at Libke. We do these things at Libke.
Yes. We are going to embrace technology. We are going to try. Our goal is to always make our people's day easier by utilizing the technology. Let them do more with their time. Spend more time client facing versus pushing paper. Doesn't always work, but we're just going to keep endeavoring to do it. Like I've told anybody
paper,
too.
I see a lot back there, Jeff.
Yeah. Oh, I have a lot here. Yeah, there's a lot of paper still here.
There was a point in time where that was clean.
Things have happened. So the thread bid will roll in here this weekend, and I'll take.
That's not client facing, Kelly. That's not client facing.
I'm just teasing. I remember the day I came in there, it was clean. I think it got cleaned up just because I was coming, but
It was definitely. I was not going to disappoint you after that one time.
Couple weeks till she's back, Jeff.
I know.
Back.
It's all going in the store.
Just blur the background. No one can see them. No, I appreciate you, Jeff, and everything that you've done for us, but also just working with your team and watching. This is the fun part for me.
Yeah.
We're kind of coming to the end of the 2 years, and it's like when you look back, it feels like so much, but then it also feels like it goes by so fast too.
It has gone by fast. It's hard to believe it's been 2 years, but
I know it's because you look younger.
well, you definitely do. So
it's the Zoom optimizer, but But yeah, it's hard work. But at the end of the day, I hope that you now have the agency that you always envisioned.
Yeah. And
not.
well, I like to tell people, people ask me like, well, hey, what has Kelly done for you? Or why did you do this? And I was like, there were things I knew where I wanted to do at the agency, places I wanted to go, things I wanted to achieve. As we talked about them, it became very clear that you were a person that could help me get there. And with that, I refer to you, you've been the boot in my butt to get some things done, because I was the one holding myself up. How do I make this change? Oh, well, if I do this, will I offend this person or upset these people?
Yeah.
You help give me, the courage to just, okay, we got to make the decision. And then once we started making decisions, we just started making more and more. And then things just started to flow and the sky didn't fall. And oh, guess what? We got more profitable. Oh, clients started responding that they love what we're doing. The energy and people picked up and we started building this team for the future. And so, thank you.
Oh, it's fun coming to work, right?
Yeah.
It's fun.
I love, I'll just stand out there sometimes and just kind of watch some of these different people as they're interacting on a phone call or talking to a client. And it's knowing how far they've come from the first time they came in here. And,
yeah,
they wouldn't have touched that phone if we hadn't forced them to. And, now they've got their headsets on and they're just going for it. We were sharing success stories and we're actually happy, we're having fun. Hearing everybody out there is like get together and laugh and joke around. And I think we've really created a place that people want to be. And so just trying to keep that going.
And what you just said, I think is so hard to describe, right? Because if you've been in your agency for 20 years, you've never really been in other agencies to know, like when you walk in, like Steve and I get a vibe and you're like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Or, oh, we got our work coming out. We have some work to do. But for everybody coming into the office, this is what you know, right? Like you don't know any different.
Yeah.
You know that, hey, you walk into places where people are high-fiving and like ringing bells and like, hey, we're doing a good job today.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I'm so busy. What do you need?
Yeah. No, we still have the rule. We talked about it with you that one day. We just keep providing staff. You're having a bad day, you leave it at the door. Come in here, be positive. We were smiling.
Lock it in your car.
Yep. Lock it there. It'll wait for you. You can deal with it when you get out there. You need help, we'll go out. We'll walk out the parking lot. We'll deal with it out there with you. Like, when we're in here, we're going to be happy. We're going to focus on the clients and smile.
It can be an escape from other stuff if you do it right? Like work can be a fun place to go.
This should be, You got other problems going on. Come get away from it here. Deliver outstanding service to our customers. Might make the other problems feel a little less burdensome when you leave. So,
well, thank you, Jeff, for being a guest. We really appreciate it and sharing a little bit about your story for the West Coast there. I just want to say, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being a client. It's been a fun 2 years and can't wait to see where you guys go next.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you guys here in a matter of a few weeks, I think. So, or a month.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah. Soon, though.
Very soon.
We're turning the heat up. We're turning the heat up for you. It won't be a snowstorm.
Awesome.
It's so close. I'm going to get in the car and drive there.
Don't talk about snowstorms and me and Lynette, please. That's a story for another podcast.
Yeah.
But
we could do a whole podcast just on that one visit.
We could do a whole podcast on that one visit. You're right. All right. Well, we'll let you go about your day, but thank you so much, Jeff.
Yep. Great to see you guys.